bringing you the best strategies to navigate your financial life. It's time to follow your compass. Listen to our industry-leading guests and grab some tips on how to navigate your financial world and beyond. Live from Gateway Financial Partners Studios, we bring you Navigating Your Wealth Journey with your host, Mike Torello.
Welcome to another episode of Navigating Your Wealth Journey. Today we are going to focus on all of the steps that are necessary in order to buy a house and get ready to buy a house. So our guest for today is Amanda Zorovich from EXP Realty. Amanda, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So what we're going to do, we're going to spend some time, we're going to focus in on what people should look for when they're getting ready to buy a home, whether it's, what they should look for in the house, things they should look for through the process, all the way through that offer, and how important it is to have a realtor along the way with them, as opposed to, a lot of people doing it themselves. So before we get started, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your background and everything, introduce yourself a little bit for our listeners.
Sure, absolutely. So, I've been in real estate since 2011 as a real estate agent. Prior to that, I was actually a real estate appraiser. So understanding values of homes and stuff like that is really helped me in my business today. And then prior to that, I have a degree in health science, which really has nothing to do with real estate whatsoever. But yeah, I've been specializing in helping veterans. I work a lot with probate right now. Kind of work with everybody, though, to be honest with you. The market has changed significantly since when I started from now.
Awesome. Yeah. Obviously, market's changing all the time with real estate. And I think that's the biggest thing that kind of scares people, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't we start right at the beginning? So if someone's, whether it be a young couple or a single person getting ready to look for someone, or someone even looking for a second home or something, and they say, I want to go buy a house. Mm-hmm. What's the first thing that they should do? Where should they really start that process to start looking?
Sure. So I think one of the first things is having the goal, right? Is having the idea that I want to buy a house. But a lot of people don't know what they should do. How do they find out if they can buy a house? One of the most important things is that we call it three things: ready, willing, and able. There's a lot of people that are ready and willing, but the third part is actually one of the more important parts is, are you able to? So you can either connect with a lender first, or you can connect with a realtor first that can give you some recommendations for lenders. And then you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable in your financial situation in explaining to the lender, everything that you got going on financially, and making sure that you're extremely honest about everything. Even if there's things that you're embarrassed about, they will find out. So if you're not upfront in the beginning, you don't want to find that out once you have a house under contract and then, oops, I forgot to tell them about this and now you can't buy the house.
And I think that's something that's extremely important, is the reminding yourself that you have to be vulnerable through that process, mm-hmm. because everything is going to come out. Any type of payments that you have, debts, anything shows up on that credit report, and they're going to check it and check it again. And, the lender is taking a risk with you as a client, and they want to make sure that their investment in you makes the most sense, as well as you taking on that loan.
That's exactly right. It doesn't always just come down to credit score. You can have an amazing credit score, but you might have a high debt to income ratio, which is going to, that'll impact your ability either to buy at all or how much you can actually afford on a monthly basis. But I have a lot of people come to me and I ask them a lot of questions. Even though I'm not a mortgage broker, I can sometimes feel out people's situations before I send them off and find the right lender for them, because I do believe in personality matching. Mm-hmm. You have to, I think when we were younger, we were taught that you don't tell anybody about your financial situation, right? So you don't talk about money. With a lender who will be a complete stranger to you, most likely, you're going to need to tell them everything that you have going on. And like I said, if you're not upfront with it, they will find it. I have there's an example. I have these clients of mine, and they're wonderful, pre-qualified to buy a house. We finally find one. This is after like a year of searching, and they didn't realize that they needed to disclose a co-op that they actually own in New York. And the reason why they didn't think they needed to, because it was rented out, so they weren't losing any money any month. So they just didn't even think of it because one of the parents was renting it. So it was like the parent owned it, but they didn't. So that showed up on their debt, which now is an additional risk. Fortunately, it didn't ruin their ability to purchase a house. But again, those are things that you don't want to come up out of the middle of nowhere. I don't think that anybody, for the most part, I don't think that anybody is choosing not to disclose things because they want to be malicious in any way, shape, or form. I think they just don't know what they don't know. And so,
right. A lot of people don't realize that when we say disclose everything, we mean everything, right? That's the same conversation that, I have with people when we're talking about saving money, right? They'll say like, oh, this looks great. And we're going through a budget and we're going through everything. And it's like, okay, on paper, it looks like you can save X amount of money per month and you're not. And it's like, oh, well, I forgot to tell you about this car payment that I've had for, 2 months, but it just really started. So that's why it wasn't on the budget sheet yet or something like that. And that impacts everything. And it gets found out anyways, and
that's
it's going to
exactly
be there.
right. And just because they do a credit check right in the beginning, they will check again when it comes time to closing a house. So if you chose to take out a 0% interest rate credit card at a furniture store, for example, that's now going to show up in your credit. It's going to look as a debt. So you definitely don't want to do anything without talking to a lender first. No buying cars, no getting any unsecured debt. Deposits into an account that you can't source is also another big thing.
Right.
So if, say, you're a mechanic and you do some work on the side and your buddy pays you cash, $1,000, and now it ends up in your account. Well, if they require another bank statement from you and that shows up, you have to be able to source that income. And if you can't, that can be a problem.
Yeah. And, a big thing too, nowadays with a lot of peer-to-peer payments and stuff like that, large deposits from Venmo and Zelle and stuff like that are all things that have to be explained. So you don't want to just have them there and pretend like they're nothing because, like you said, those large deposits, each lender has kind of their own threshold for what's a large deposit and what's not. So you're going to have to explain all that stuff as well.
That's exactly right. Those are called overlays, actually. So like Fannie Mae may have a minimum, credit guideline, but then the lender can add their own overlay on top of that. So they can make it. I know Fannie Mae just actually changed their credit score guidelines, I believe, but that doesn't mean that every lender is going to lend with that credit score. They're going to have their own overlay on it because that's how they minimize risk.
Right. Awesome. So once someone they meet with that mortgage broker, they meet with the lender, and they have maybe a target price that they can start looking for at a house. Where do they go from there? Should they start looking on their own? Should they kind of set the parameters with you? Like, how would that process look, in an ideal world?
So once you understand what your buying power is, how much you can afford, then we kind of work backwards and I say, okay, so if you can afford $300,000, let's see what we can get for $250,000. Okay, because I don't like to push I don't want people to be house poor, so I don't want to go right to the top of their list. Let's see what we can get for $250,000. So I start sending them some listings, and this is where the realtor really comes in. So a realtor can set you up on alerts. Most people are using their own third-party sites by that time, and that's okay. You can text me however you want. And then what I do is I go onto the MLS, multiple listing service, is what we use as realtors, and then I look to see if that house meets the guidelines for their particular loan. So, for example, if someone's getting a government-backed loan like FHA or VA or CHFA, they care about the condition of the house. So if they've sent me a house that I can clearly see where there's a blue tarp on the roof, which would indicate that there's probably a leak in the roof, that most likely is not going to qualify. So I'm the type of person that is not going to just run out there and show you something, which I know that you can't have. One of the other things is also understanding what they want their mortgage payment to be per month. So just because you're qualified for $300,000 doesn't mean that you want to afford $1,000 per month. So it's also looking at the taxes. And that's probably what changes people's mortgage payments the most, is actually the amount of taxes. So there's a house, there's certain towns that have higher taxes, and we know what towns those are.
Right.
So if they send me something that's kind of in that town, that's the first thing I go to, and I say, okay. And then I have my little calculator, and I'll look to see what that monthly payment looks like and say, look, I know you guys said that you want to stay around $2,000 a month, and this house, while it looks great and everything, it's looking like this is going to be about $2,500 a month. How do you feel about that? Do you still want to go see it? So the looking at houses is kind of the fun part, right? But to me, it's about educating our clients, educating our buyers and sellers alike. They don't know what they don't know. So my goal is to empower them, and I teach them as we go along so that they feel like they're an educated buyer. And to me, then they make better decisions, less likely to have regret in the future.
And really looking at that monthly payment, and not just the, you know, the principal and interest payment, but it's everything else that goes into that payment. And I think those are the things people forget, right? They may not understand, right? You know, if your house seems like a really good deal, but it's a larger house, your insurance is going to be more, right? You know, if you're buying it as a, you know, a short sale or a foreclosure, you're still going to have to pay insurance on what it's going to be worth, right? And people don't realize that, you know, the taxes, but then also things like private mortgage insurance and HOA fees,
Absolutely.
right? You know, there's so many small communities out there where you see HOA fees of $50 a month or $100 a month, but that all adds into your payment, which again, like you said, you don't like to push clients to the top of their qualification level. And if they're right at the top at a price level, and then there's a $100 HOA, that $100 a month HOA can push them over where they're not going to qualify for a house.
That's exactly right. And sometimes, you know, if someone's kind of on the fence between, you know, wanting to buy a condo or buying a house, so someone may decide that they want to buy a condo because they think it's more affordable, because the price of the place, whereas a house may cost $350, maybe the condo costs $250, right? Well, then you need to count in the HOA, which in some cases can actually make the condo more expensive than the single family house to begin with. And then you have to say to yourself, well, I know that you don't want to mow the lawn and do any plowing, but can you hire someone cheaper than paying the HOA fees? Because the HOA fees have really gone up significantly. I used to see like 2s, 3s. Now I'm seeing 4s and even 5s. And when you get into the 5, that's $500 a month that's recurring. That's $6,000 a year that you're paying for someone to mow your lawn. And in other cases, you know, do the plowing, the garbage. So you really have to weigh that out. Do you want to be able to take care of those things on your own and pay for them separately? Is that more affordable? Or do you just like the ease of not having to worry about it?
Right.
So again, it's about educating. And when we take the time to educate people, then that's when the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, I didn't even think of that. You're right.
And that also makes their search easier.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I'm sure you've dealt with this a lot, and I talk to people all the time, and they say, you know, I've looked at 75 houses or 100 houses, and it's like, well, have you trimmed your parameters, right? Have you been educated to understand what goes into the process, or are you going to see houses and then realizing you can't afford them, or then realizing it's not the smartest decision to make?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that I'm probably honest to a fault, to be honest with you, because I have had some of my buyers say, you know, I know that you're pointing out all the bad things about the house and the reasons why this may not be a good idea. But again, to me, that's about educating them. At the end of the day, if my buyer really is just in love with that house, and I truly believe that that's a feeling that you get, either, and it's a feeling I can't give you, and it's a feeling I can't take away from you either. So what I try to provide is looking at the house and saying, look, you know, you might need a new roof in 5 years. The boiler's older, those sorts of things. You know, most buyers will have a home inspection, and that's a whole other topic of conversation in this crazy market that we're dealing with right now. But, you know, try to provide some value in that way. And then, you know, if you get that feeling, great. And if not, then we keep looking. I don't want people to settle, make compromises, those sorts of things. And, you know, when I'm showing houses, I try to have fun.
Right.
You know, it's not a chore. I don't look at it like that. It's just like, hey, we're here to hang out. No different than you know more about your profession than I do. You know, we're on the same level. I don't try to be somebody that I'm not. We're just here. We're hanging out. Like the house, great. I'll tell you a little bit about it. And if you decide you want it, then let's go get it. So
you started talking kind of into the next topic, right? So you've picked out some houses. We're going to look at houses. What should somebody be looking for? Like, obviously, it's you walk in, it's that this is my home. I love it. You know, I have that feel. But what are some things people should be looking at, either for some red flags of maybe we should walk away from this, but also some green flags to say, like, let's keep going down this path. This is a good home.
So again, I think this is all about how well the buyer's educated to certain components of houses, right? There's definitely a difference in the generations, okay? My favorite house to sell, and I don't mean to stereotype it, but it's grandma's house. It's a house that's been lived in for 60 years, less maybe, but someone that's taken care of the house. They've done the major things, the roof, the mechanicals, the windows,
Right.
What would be considered deferred maintenance. But they never did the cabinets. They might still be carpet on the floor because that age group lived through like a recession. And so they only did the things that they had to do, but it's a super solid house. It was cared for. Those are my favorite houses. Right now we're seeing a lot of flips in the marketplace where someone, purchased a house, whether it was bank owned or cheap, and, they put some money into it to put it and make it look prettier and hoping to appeal to today's buyer. I think you have to be really cautious with those because and it's not necessarily the person that flipped it's fault, but they never lived in it. They only know what they collected, and they did the cabinets and stuff, but they haven't lived in it. They haven't used it. So there can be things that are going on with that. I always look for, like when there's a flip, I look at the paint job. Like if I can see that you clearly painted the ceiling part of the color of the wall, and it's just kind of splattered all over the place. Okay, well then you really didn't take good care in that. So what can't I see?
Right.
All right. So when I pull up to a house, it's like, I always wanted to be a cop, right? I wanted to be a detective. So this is the way that I get to live vicariously through that, is I pull up to the house and I'm already like investigating. Like, what do the windows look like? What does the flashing look like around the chimney?
Yeah.
And I teach my buyers that I'm not a home inspector, and I don't ever pretend to be. I always default, you should have a home inspection. I believe in that fully. But if I can readily see some things, I can say, oh, look, that roof looks like it's probably a 20-year roof. I know that insurances right now are not necessarily giving you insurance with a 20-year roof. So that could be a problem down the road.
Yep.
I'm trying to be proactive. So I think it's the lens that you teach your buyer to look through, looking through at like deferred maintenance. What are your major things that are going to have to be replaced? A kitchen, you can live with a kitchen. You can buy appliances.
Right.
You can buy a new countertop. Is it a necessity? Well, I think that's subjective. It depends on who you're talking to. But there's, without a doubt, if a roof is leaking, it's going to have to be replaced. You can't just, I do know some people that just let them leak. But, so those are the major things, is understanding. I will say that I love parents, and I love when buyers have friends that are contractors. With that said, I call it the little birdie that's tweeting in their ear.
Yeah.
Okay? Because sometimes they don't know enough about the process, and they may scare buyers away from things unintentionally, right? Our parents lived through a different generation, but the reality of it is what things cost back then is not what things cost now.
Right.
So they're not wrong about, what the house might need or be fixed up. It's more just how much it would cost to do those things. You can't get anything. I mean, right now, I think I looked before I came, actually. There's only like 38 houses, single family houses listed for sale under $200,000 right now in all of Connecticut.
Which is crazy, right? When you think of it that way, and that's just kind of where prices are today and everything like that. And, also like that comes down to like, if there's something that needs to be fixed, it's like, well, I only have this amount of money. So it's like, there might be 4 projects. I can only do 1, or I can only do 2.
Exactly.
But you make a good point. You're showing up to that listing, you're looking at the stuff that's simple. And if it doesn't look good, what else doesn't look good? Right.
That's
They know you're coming there. You're not surprising them, right? You're either going to an open house or you're going to a showing. And if you're pulling up and the lawn's not taken well care of, or the house is filthy, and you go, you open the door and things are out of touch, or like you said on a flip, if it's not a professional paint job, they did the paint job, haphazardly. what else is hidden? What else? And then that leans to kind of that home inspection of where you're going. Hey, I really want you to go deep and find things because I think there's stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget a house, and it was in Wallingford. It has to be like 12 years ago now. And it was a flip house, and there was granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and the girlfriend was in awe. She's like, "Oh my God, I love the kitchen. It's so beautiful." And I'm going right to the basement.
Right.
Like, let's see what's going on in the basement. And there was this huge horizontal crack. I've never seen anything like it since. A huge horizontal crack. And the foundation is actually shifted. That's a big deal, people. And I went up to them and I said, I'm sorry to say this, and I know you really like the kitchen. I said, but there's a pretty big problem in the basement. And, you should have a home inspection, obviously, and in this case, probably a structural engineer if you want to purchase this house. Mm-hmm. But I think that's gonna come up. So what it looked like, though, is the person did the kitchen and the main thing. When I say the main things, the main cosmetic things.
Right.
The house still needed new windows, had the original roof, had a huge crack in its foundation, and it was just left like that. And it was to appeal to the buyer's eye. Again, they don't know what they don't know, though.
Exactly.
They just know that they want stainless steel and granite countertops.
Well, and that's most of the things that people, when they give you their list of what they want,
Yeah.
right? Most of that list starts with like how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what type of specific cosmetic features that they want. But you're going to be you're buying, most people take out a 30-year mortgage. They're planning on being in a house for a long time. You want to make sure the house is there for a long time.
Well, that's exactly right. And when people do give me that list, because I always ask for that list, and I write it all down. And sometimes I know that list does not match what they can afford. All right. And it's at that time, though, I don't wait until, I've showed them 10 houses to say, I don't think we're going to find what you're looking for because the budget isn't there. I will have that conversation with them right up front. And I'll say, look, I really hope that we can get these things for you. But in my experience, I don't think that we're going to be able to get all these things in this price range. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. And I certainly don't want to disappoint you. But at the same time, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to help you. And I'm not helping them by showing them 10 houses, getting them all excited that they're going to be able to find this dream home in a certain budget. To me, that's just wrong. But again, that's just about knowing like the different towns, the markets, the prices, and it's about keeping up with it because it changes.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So we're in a house. We decide this is the house that we want to buy. What happens next?
Okay, so everybody's like, they find the house that they like. They're like, what do we do? I'm like, all right, so let's go back. Let me do some research. Okay, I want to research the house. I want to find all the town information, and I send it all to you so that at least, again, you have the same information that I do. It's transparency. And then we need to decide on how much we're going to offer for the house. And I know what question you're thinking. I was like, well, how do you decide how much you're going to offer? And that's dependent of the market.
Right.
We're in a crazy market right now. So what I do is I go and I look to see what's sold in the area to see if, number one, the house is priced right, to know whether or not we're going to have an appraisal issue if we have to offer more. So I give them the education, the tools to make that decision. And then we write up the offer. And as my husband will tell you, he thinks like the offer is like Mad Libs, right? You just kind of fill in the blanks. And I'm not going to lie, it is a little bit like that, but not. I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into that process.
Right.
And there's dates, there's deposits. We put together the offer. We try to make it as strong as possible. And then when I say we, the agent emails it over to the listing agent and hopefully gives them a call as well. In this market, I'm pretty much set on hearing back from the listing agent saying, hey, we got multiple offers, present your highest and best by XYZ time. And then we have to decide, what can we do, if anything, to make our offer any stronger. In a different market, there was kind of like the game of ping pong where we go back and forth a little bit.
Right.
We would be able to negotiate those things without giving up home inspections, without doing appraisal gaps. I actually like that time a little bit better, to be honest with you. I mean, it's great on the seller side, but and then we just have to hope for the best and hope that we get it. To me, communication with the other real estate agent is really important. Because that other agent doesn't want to be working with someone that's going to drop the ball. And
Right.
when they have a lot of choices, how do you choose?
Well, and that's the thing too, like that the seller's agent is choosing the offer, they're trying to choose the offer not just based on dollar amount.
That's
right.
exactly
They're
right.
seeing everything that goes into that offer as well. One thing I just want to touch back on that you brought up that I know I went through when I bought a house was like you said, you go to the town and you see all the records and stuff. And I think that's so important to look at because like when I bought my house has a strange access easement that you would never know without doing that research. And just able to take that extra step that a lot of people don't realize like you need to do, especially for me, like I'm in Wallingford. Our town records are not online. That means going to town hall, getting paper records and really looking at it and really understanding, okay, this is the property. And, my lot had a lot of stuff on it.
I remember it was actually very confusing because I know we talked about it at great length trying to figure out exactly what it all meant.
Right.
It was a right of way.
It was a right of way because it was an original lot that was split into two, and something weird about installing the driveway with how close it was to the river, and it ended up being a no big deal. But it's one of those things. Before I put an offer in, I wanted to do that due diligence, and that's something where you got to make sure you take all the steps. You don't skip anything along the way.
That's exactly right. So again, I do believe a little bit of it's on the realtor to provide that information because again, you don't know what you don't know. So given a little bit of guidance, you were able to go and do that research and find out that information for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of in that offer process, so you made the offer, you're hoping to hear it back. Let's say once the offer gets accepted. Now your offer's been accepted. What are you doing now as the buyer kind of before you go to closing? Like what else are you now looking at the house? I know that's where inspection comes into play, appraisal, kind of talk a little bit about that process.
So it's going to seem like one of those times that takes forever to happen. It's really like 45 days. To me, it goes quickly, but to the buyer, not so much. But yeah, there's going to be a home inspection if you were able to negotiate that as part of the deal. So that would be the first thing. And then the lender kind of takes over after that where they're going to order an appraisal. And the appraisal is an estimate of value. It's not necessarily to protect the buyer's interest, it's to protect the bank's interest, to make sure that what you're paying for it, it's worth it. And then a mortgage commitment, which is the lender's promise to loan the money. Because when you fill out the application and they give you the pre-qual, they're basically saying, yeah, based on everything that you told me and maybe a few things that you sent me, you look like a good candidate for a mortgage. But once you actually apply, that's when you become financially violated, and they're going to look into everything. And as long as everything goes well, you'll have a closing day usually within about 45 days.
Now, real quick, last thing I want to talk about is kind of that home inspection, right? Because that's one of the big things in today's market that's kind of popular is like having to waive that inspection as part of your offer.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you can't do an inspection. It just means it can't be a contingent on your offer, correct?
That's exactly right. So in a regular offer, you have, there's a spot where you can put in a home inspection contingency, and it would give you the opportunity to renegotiate either the price or fixing some things and back out of a contract. Even with the craziness of the market right now, a lot of people are just waiving that contingency altogether just as an effort to get the house. I don't recommend it in any way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean that none of my buyers have done it, though. I make them sign a waiver saying that I told you to have one. Massachusetts actually passed a law where it can't be, a lack of a home inspection can't be a negotiating factor, which we'll see if that happens in Connecticut too. I don't know. But the home inspection, I think, is one of the most important processes. And then as to answer the follow-up question is that you can still have one. It would be based on whether or not the seller will allow you to come in and actually do it, even if it's not a contingency.
Got it. Understood. Awesome. So, Amanda, as we're wrapping up today, thank you very much for coming on. If someone has questions for you, if they want to follow up, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, so easy. You can just text me at my number. I think it's up here, 203-886-6600. You can call me. You can email me. I'm pretty flexible. Work 24/7. It's my full-time gig. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Amanda. Thank you very much for coming on. And that wraps up another episode of Navigating Your Wealth Journey. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks.